All right. Hey, welcome everybody to Retain and Gain, episode 1. I'm Larry Bruce.
I'm Rob Mudd.
This is Rob Mudd. And, you know, we started a podcast not too long ago. Some of you guys might have seen it, the Deercast. But Rob and I wanted to get a little more tactical at the dealership level, and hopefully give you guys some things that you can walk away with each episode and go make your store better. And so we're going to that's what this Retain and Gain podcast is going to be about. So Rob, I'm going to introduce Rob Mudd, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself and then how we get to know each other, I guess.
Thank you, Larry. My name is Rob Mudd. He's telling the truth there. I work with Mudd Advertising. It's my family's business. Been around quite a long time. Work with car dealers, tier 3 dealers on a daily basis, trying to bring them planning and execution to help them on a daily basis sell more cars. And Larry and I came to know one another about 25 years ago by attending a Jim Ziegler seminar down in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep. We're going to take a second. We're going to take a second and talk about Jim for a moment, because unfortunately we lost Jim on Friday. That's one of the last of the car Mohicans. Great guy. I knew Jim before I even ever started a company in automotive, when I was still a finance manager in Texas. So it is a hard loss. And he will be sorely missed. And Jim was love him, hate him. He loved car dealers. Yeah.
And he was the dealer advocate. And he sure was, until his last breath, really. I mean, he was online talking about it. But Jim taught me a hell of a lot about the car business, about the important things, the meet and greet, counsel qualify, the 5 steps to the sale, and the Foursquare.
Yeah.
And so that's how Larry and I met 25 years ago, doing a seminar with Jim. And we would come in there and talk about advertising. And then Larry was talking about lists and mail, and then it would get turned over to Jim. And Jim would then talk about the desking and how to work the deal. But it always is in the same order. And Jim knew that you had to start with advertising to find an audience that wants to buy a car, then push them down to the dealership location. Then you meet and greet them. They're an up. And you go through the process, you get them in the box, do a Foursquare. Hopefully they buy a car and away they go. And next, right? And participate in a bunch of those. I mean, I think it was over 36 that we did.
Yeah, we did those. We did some of the in Las Vegas
shows.
They eventually ended up coming. Internet Battle Plan came up. I mean, there was so many. I have so many great memories of working with Jim, and I will cherish those. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned a lot before I even started, working with Jim with AIM data way back in the day. I learned a ton from Jim about F&I. I learned a ton from Jim about, just about the car business in general. He was definitely a student of this business.
Process man. He was a process guy, and the process will save you. The system will save you. Work the deal, work the process.
Yeah.
And that's, that was his mantra, the process, but his process worked, right?
Yeah. My favorite, I call them Zieglerisms, and I've got several, but my favorite Zieglerism is you get, inspect what you expect, or you'll get what you tolerate.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite Zieglerisms, and that's still true today. I mean, if you're a dealer today, if you're not inspecting what you expect, you're getting what you tolerate.
Yep.
And a lot of them are, and a lot of us are, and we got to stop.
Yep.
But that's one of my favorites. What is one of your favorites?
I mean, Jim, the Foursquare, right? The Foursquare, and how eloquently he put the word tracks together.
Yeah, I mean, he was the first one I ever saw that had a Foursquare that really wasn't a Foursquare. It wasn't 4 squares.
Right.
It would just you could literally almost read the script line for line.
Yep.
It was a 4-square process, but not a four-square okay deal kind of thing you stuck in front of you. Yeah. That was genius. That was great. I mean, Jim came up with so many great things. It's a shame he's gone. I don't know who's picking up the torch there.
Larry, it's you and me, buddy. It's you and me, man.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting down to that level,
but we can pick it up.
We can pick it. We're going to keep him alive through the things we do.
We're going to talk about up counting. discounts today.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's
we are.
where Jim hammered that thought,
Yes,
right?
100%. 100%. That's true. So, I started in the business in 1980, just the late 84, basically. It was 85. And I can, I remember I met Jim Ziegler in 89. So, but I sold cars, was on the drive. I washed cars. When I sold cars, sometimes I had to go wash them. That's just the way that is. It's 10:30 at night. The porters are gone. You got to go wash the car. But I can, I remember, as a salesperson wanting to move up in the car in the dealership, and I remember Jim's words even then when you would hear them. He's one of the first ones who introduced me to Clint McGee. That's who taught me to sell cars. I got the Go system from Jim. He told me to go get those tapes.
I met Jim. The first time I met Jim was in Las Vegas, believe it or not.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Right.
Right.
At NADA, I was walking through, I think it was Caesars, going, I don't know where I was. It was that night. Mm-hmm. And I looked at this blackjack table, and there's Jim Ziegler.
Oh, yeah.
And I said with the person next to me, I said, look, that's Jim Ziegler. And so I went over there and said, Mr. Ziegler, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Rob Mudd. Oh, hi, Rob. How are you doing? And that was it. And then away we went. Yeah. But that was the first time I ever met Jim was in Vegas at a blackjack table, which is about right.
Yeah, I mean, that was Jim's favorite spot.
Yes,
when we weren't talking, we were in front of a blackjack table. So,
but the one thing that Jim left with me, and I still preach this today, is the up count. You can't help a dealer if you don't know what his up count is, because you can't apply his close ratio or determine what one is. Mm-hmm. And that's what always stuck with me with Jim. And he's right. He was right then. He's right now.
Yeah.
And the thing that changed was the lexicon that was used to describe people interested in what you want to buy or sell. Right. And they changed what the industry had known as an up. Everyone knew what an up was. An up was someone on your showroom floor.
Right.
And then the language started to change by the third-party lead guys, because they changed it to ups. That's old lexicon. That's old-time stuff. That's boring. You need to get progressive and call them leads.
Yeah.
Because we can sell you a shitload of leads that may not turn into ups.
Oh, no, yeah. So we're that's our topic. And think about this. If you're out in the audience, when was the first time, if you've been doing this for a while, when was the first time you heard the term lead? Rob, when was the first time you heard it?
I mean, it's got to go back to 2006 and 2007, right when, Cars.com, Auto Trader, VHIX, all these guys were trying to create these third-party lead generators, and ubiquity was a big word back then, because they wanted everybody to be on this stuff, right?
It was going to become ubiquitous.
And so that's when it really changed for me, is when they started talking about the third-party guys and the lead, and the lead is better than the word term up, because that's old. Well, the reality is they took the real focus of the business from having people show up, and they moved it out to fit their business model.
Yeah, I there's a lot of truth to that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the term lead, is really just an opportunity. It's an opportunity to sell
what is a lead?
Something. But what is a lead? Right. So what is a lead? What is an opportunity? Well, it's a name, an email address, and a mobile number.
There you go.
Right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is if you don't have a name, you don't have an email address, you don't have a mobile number, you can't follow up. And if you can't follow up, you don't have an opportunity. What you have is,
And there's that word again, up.
Yeah.
Whether you're following the up or following up on the up, right?
Right.
But the up is someone that walked across the threshold of your door,
right,
and came to your dealership.
But that's all we had.
That's all you had, right?
Right.
But it was also the closest thing to a deal that we had.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still the closest thing to a deal you have.
Yeah, you got to.
At the end of the day, again, the lead is just it's an internet phone call. we started getting phone calls, and
we call those phone ups.
We called those phone ups, right? Exactly. So we called those phone ups. We had
internet ups
and 4 phone ups, and then we had internet ups, and then
we had 4
leads.
different sales programs or sales forces to handle all of these different acronyms that came into this.
It is kind of fascinating to look back and see just how things changed over the years, but how the same they are today, and how we seem to have forgotten, what exactly makes this business run. And that's, the customer.
The customer.
Right? And we talk about the experience, the customer experience, and we completely, when you talk to people about customer experience in the car business today, they completely leave the sales experience out of it. They completely leave you don't hear them talk about, you're talking about, well, what's the experience on the website? What was their experience with getting finding the vehicle that they wanted? What was the experience with getting the information they wanted out of the website, or trying to go through digital retail? I don't know why, but we are determined to turn this into an online thing.
Well, that's
even when customers,
even
when customers are resoundingly rejecting that they don't want to turn this into an internet thing for the most part.
So you remember 1999 down in Orlando, NADA. It was the .com. Remember the .com guys showed up, and they were going to change the way the car business worked because it was inefficient, the way that you did things, and they were going to change the whole damn thing, right? Mm-hmm. And they flopped, right? Because, well, I shouldn't say it flopped from what they thought it was going to do instantaneously, right?
Right.
But over time, they were right because they didn't stop trying to change it. And it's always been a focus from the outside on this business called automotive retail. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Well, it's big money, man. Yeah. It's big money. But it's not just big money for the auto industry. It's big money for the community that you live in, because car dealers usually pay the most sales tax than anybody else.
Right.
So it's a huge, huge industry. And
the biggest niche industry in the world.
And what I have seen that we've kind of, we went through two black swan events, the chip shortage or crises, whatever, or not in existence. And then COVID. 2 black swan events at the same time, right?
Yeah. Which actually was created by the OEMs.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
I mean, they created the chip shortage problem.
Yep.
That was their hastiness on COVID, right? And then of course COVID, and what that changed and how that changed the whole world for a few years, right?
So then is it, the OEMs always, I'm not letting anything out of the bag when I say that the OEM, the dealer relationship's always been a tentative one to some degree. Right?
No, yeah, you're not sure. You're not sure. Nobody's out there going, Jim, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Jim, what would you say? Well, that would be different.
Yeah.
But that's where that push that's of getting the person to bypass the interaction with the dealership. Right. And find that common ground or that bond with the OEM.
Right.
Which, as Jim Ziegler would teach or taught us, there isn't loyalty to the car. There isn't loyalty to the OEM. There's loyalty to the payment.
Yeah. Right. And there's loyalty, and there's loyalty to the store to a degree. And there are dealers that have done a great job of getting customers loyal to their store. The biggest one coming from Texas, what I run into all the time. I mean, if you watch a car dealership commercial in Texas for Sewell, they don't talk about buy a Chevrolet, buy a Mercedes.
They talk about buy a Sewell.
I own a Sewell.
Yeah.
That's probably the most brilliance I've seen ever. Because it just comes down to, it doesn't matter what I want to buy. I just want to buy it from Sewell. That's all we ever wanted to do as marketers in the car business, or as people that were trying to help dealers sell cars, is we didn't care what you bought, as long as you want from one of our dealers, right? And that's the funny thing about all of this that's gone on over the last 25 years, is that we've changed this idea to where we believe now in the car business that everything has to be online?
Because we believe everything has to be optimized, right? And so the economies of scale, and maybe this started back in the 2000s when the consolidations started and people were buying up multiple dealerships, and then the public money came into the industry and they're buying up, multiple stores, 15, 20, 50, 100. And once you hit those numbers, then you're looking at optimizing how you run your operation, your enterprise.
Right.
And a lot of guys centralize that because they thought they'd get more bang for the buck. Well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But when you centralize it, you lost that common touch, so to speak, at the localized level.
Sure.
So there's a lot of things that have happened over time in evolution of time that's changed the business. But at the end of the day, people buy cars from people.
Always.
Right?
That has not changed.
That has not changed.
Likely to change.
And so,
in any time soon. So at the end of the day, so whether it's online or at the store, a person is going to be involved in this in this transaction, and a conversation will be had.
Yeah. And I don't want to say, yes, there will be people that will transact through the full process online. Carvana has done it. There are people that do it. But we're talking, Dad always taught us, advertise to the masses, market to the classes.
Right.
Right. And so there's going to be a small percentage. Okay, you can chase that. Or do you want to chase the masses? And the masses aren't doing that. They're showing up and going through the same process. They just
there's a law of advertising, and I don't hear it enough these days. But it's because it's old and somebody wants to change it. But it's reach and frequency.
Right, 100%.
That's a law. It's not a rule. It is a law.
Yes,
that it takes reach and frequency.
And so when the digital guys came on, they wanted to tell and educate dealers that reach was a waste if you could be targeted, right?
Yeah.
And when I say they, it was just a different philosophy about reach. But to your point, when I was doing heavy seminars, even with Jim, one of the questions I'd ask the audience is, I'd say, how many of you out there have kids? They'd all raise their hand.
Right.
And I'd say, how many times do you have to tell your kids to clean their room, make their bed? I'm just trying to
frequency,
right? Not one time, not two times, multiple 15 times. And that's the name of the game, frequency.
Right. Reach and frequency. I mean, and reach doesn't have to be a mass thing. It can be a target.
It's your audience.
Yeah, but it's your audience. So
audience.
These are the people I'm going to reach out to, and I'm going to do it often. Right.
Yep, that's it.
And you see people. One of the best examples today that I know of in that realm is the guy is Tracy Myers over at Frank Myers or Automax, right? I think I see on LinkedIn. I talked to Tracy when I talked to him. There's always a story about how I hate your commercials as they're buying the car.
Right. As they're buying the car.
Yes, and you're going, okay. Right.
Yeah.
So that's because that commercial, no matter how much you hated or like it, came on a lot. It helped. It reminded you, and that's where you went to buy the car.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
So my wife likes to go on the weekends and look at open houses.
Right.
I go, but I don't like to. But I go because she wants me to go.
Right.
So we were at one this weekend, and you brought up when you're talking about the up count. So what's the first thing you do when you walk in the house? You take off your shoes. What's the next thing you do is you go to the counter and you sign in the sheet, and you give them your first name, last name, and phone number and where you're from.
Right.
And everybody did it.
Yeah.
That's an up count.
That's an up count. Yeah.
And now I know who to. It's
so what happened
stuff.
up to? So I mean, that gives us a good segue into. They say, what happened to the up? What happened? When did we stop? We're trying to make this an up and trying to make everything elite.
Hey, I go back to when the tech guys wanted to sell you a different piece of technology.
Yeah.
That's when it changed, right? That you don't use the word up. It's derogatory. No, it's not. It's lexicon of the industry, right? And it means you're up take the next up, because in the old days, because there's so much traffic, you had to take turns because you had a bunch of sales guys and everyone wants a shot at it. And so who's up? It's like baseball. I mean, it's simple stuff, right? But what it really meant is who's talking to this individual right now, right? And did you get their first name, last name, phone number, and address?
Right.
And what do they want to do? 5 steps to sale, all that stuff. But it first starts with talking to someone.
Yeah. And then everything starts with a conversation. Everything starts with a conversation. In 1999, I think I've reminded some people about this recently. Is that there's 4 guys who Doc Searles is the one that comes to my head, who wrote the Clue Train Manifesto. If you haven't, just look it up. Clue Train Manifesto, 1999, and it describes exactly what's going on today. At the end of the day, markets are conversations.
Yeah.
And a conversation will be had with your customer before they buy anything, service, parts, sale, a car, whatever. A conversation is going to get had. So, I struggle with what happened to the up. Why do we not work more for come to our store, experience the vehicle? I mean, Clinton McGee used to say, used to say, throw away all of the brochures. And that's really what you kind of got online, right?
Right. That's it, right?
He would throw away all the brochures. I can show it to you in 4D.
Yeah,
right here. Come with me.
Let
me put it to you. But don't go grab a brochure. When we always tell us, don't go grab a brochure from in the dealership. Take them to the damn car.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
You can't, but one of my good friends, Sean Stapleton. Let me say hey to Sean. He's got a great deal. I can't say it as good as he does, but if you want to make more deals, you got to feel more wheel, right?
Yeah.
The feel of the wheel. What makes a deal is the feel of the wheel. You want to make more deals, feel more wheel, right? I mean, he's got a better way of saying that, but I totally 100% understand it. It comes down to you're not going to be excited about buying that car till you sit behind that wheel.
So one of the words in advertising that I think people lose the concept or even the knowledge of is a word called consideration. And consideration was what the customer or the prospect or the person that heard your message, what were they going to give back? Right. And that was their time.
Yes.
Right. The consideration was showing up at the dealership. I put an offer out. Someone shows up. That's consideration.
Right.
Well, when everything moved to the internet, then consideration became, do they click on a unit? Do they impression? They transformed the meaning of the word consideration. That meant someone giving of their time. The internet is not a giving of time. It's a tool to get more efficiency out of your time.
Right.
However, the part that we gave away was the connection with the customer.
Yeah.
We thought that the internet, the phone, everything online, that the customer was going to sell themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's and you see that today.
Yeah.
I mean, there are the professional salesperson, unfortunately, and some people may get mad at me for saying this, but it's leaving the car business, and it's sad to see. And I'm hoping we can bring it back someday, but right now it's tough. And
I think it's the mindset, right?
So you're right. I think there's a lot to that.
I just read an article the other day in the Automotive News about a guy who's gave back thank yous to all of his customers, and he was like a 35 car guy a month.
Right.
And people were just, how do you do this? Well, he understands the relationship, right? The CRM is him, and he went out and hired his own assistant to make sure that they follow up on all these things that need to get done, to let people know you still care about them or are interested in what's going on. That's the business, right? Jim Ziegler would say that you have to do the process. And why are green peas so good? It's because they do what they're told to do. When do they get not so good? When they stop doing what they're supposed to do.
They get manageritis.
Yes. They've worked there. I can already tell that this guy's not a buyer just because of the way all that stuff, right?
Right. So
the internet let them get away with more of that, right? Yeah. Excuses.
Yeah. Let's talk about what's it take to get more ups? Let's start. I don't care about leads. What's it take to get more ups? And here's a thing that I wonder. When did we stop doing events?
Right. You stopped doing events when COVID showed up.
Yeah, well, we stopped. I think we stopped doing events when the internet showed up. I think we decided that we're going to just transfer everything on the line. We're going to make this a dry transaction.
Take the emotion out of the car.
Complete emotion out of the car purchase altogether. We're going to in the name of customer or efficiency, and customers want to spend less
time at the dealership.
Want to spend less time at the dealership, which I don't totally disagree with. But they want to spend less time. Realistically, what they want to spend less time negotiating with you over the price.
They want to spend less time everywhere. I want to spend less time with my dentist. I want to spend less time on things that you do in life, right? I mean,
because I have less time.
Right, you have less time. Why? Because you have more stuff to look at, right? Constantly.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, but I believe it is a mindset.
Yeah.
Events. We wholesale Hank. Remember Brian's story? Brian's story goes back to the original slasher sales.
Yeah.
Brian's out of California. We met him probably 28 years ago. I saw him just this past NADA, and we were having the conversation of, hey, the events. That's how we met Brian, right? No one does them anymore. No one knows how to do them. No one even would think of doing one. But they brought energy to the event. And people dug it. I mean, remember the Toyota 10 events they used to do?
Oh, yeah.
They were big deals.
They were big deals. And they worked.
And so
why if you really want to have a customer experience, make a customer experience.
Right, exactly.
Your website's not going to do it. I just want to give you, I hate to have to tell you this. It ain't going to make a customer experience.
No, but whoever you get your website from, those people are going to tell you a million ways to Sunday that it does.
Yes.
You don't have time.
Experiences come from people.
Right. And you don't have time to argue with them. You don't have time to, because you're stuck in their format, right? That's the other thing that the digital world has done. It is commoditized everybody's process. It's homogenized everything. Everyone has to do the way the platform says to do. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I see what where you're coming from on that, because it's one of those things where we want to create more ups. That there's got to be a reason to come to the store, right?
Right.
And the car is the big reason to come to the store. But I can remember grilling the damn hot dogs.
Right. Right.
Okay. I did it for our stores in Galveston. I can remember having the events, and I can remember people enjoying the event. They weren't unhappy.
No.
Now, they got unhappy when you kept them in the box for 4.5 hours trying to negotiate for that last $150.
Yeah.
Yeah. That pissed some people off. And you shouldn't be shocked that it did. But
here's the other reason people hate car don't hate, but isn't their favorite experience. The same reason dentists aren't their favorite experience. They only do it once, or dentists twice a year. Car buying once every 6 years. Yeah. They do it without frequency.
It used to be 2.5.
Yeah, it used to be when they leased a lot of cars, which they don't anymore, which they're
going to have to do.
Absolutely. So I was looking this past week. I keep this ledger of car sales from 2004 through 2025. It was 20 years of car deals. Mm-hmm. There's only some blips on the radar screen, and we all know what those are.
Right.
Came from 08. Mm-hmm. This is before 99. So 08, and then 12 and 13, and then 19 and 20 COVID. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that slid. Mm-hmm. But other than that, they're pretty consistent, right? Consistent. So we're going into March right now. March is the best month of the year, hands down, for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
So should we be guessing of what we're going to do this month? No, hell no. You should be planned out.
That should have been planned out in January.
Right,
man.
Absolutely.
100%. And you should have an event. Because you know why? Especially here in Iowa, everybody wants to get the hell out of the house.
Yeah, or everyone wants to get the hell out of the house everywhere you go. I mean,
Just about. If you're going to get out in the spring, you want to get out in the air. I mean, there's nothing wrong with I just think we have more events. That's first tactical thing. Have more events. And you know what? Have them once a quarter. Have 4 events a year. Set them up prior to. And have them consistent, because it's, again, reach and frequency, right? Have the same event, the same time every year, but have the event.
Yep, because people will remember it and they'll know it's coming up and they'll want to show up.
Yeah.
100%. Planning, to me, I mean, we have the same 12 months every year, last I checked, right?
Yeah, I hadn't changed in a while.
And so if you then look at the car numbers of retail, new and used, you're going to see that it's almost a statistically fact that you're not going to change it unless a black swan thing happens, right? Mm-hmm. So we know the best months of the year. We know them. Those should be event months.
Event months.
And we used to have new campaigns, used campaigns, and store-wide events. Mm-hmm. We had three that you're going to choose from, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's news ran by the OEMs. Mm-hmm. Used is how can we get our used under co-op, right? And store-wide events, what's that?
Yeah, I know. So if you take nothing away from this last 5 minutes, more events. Please. More events. You know, now the other thing that really shocks me is what we've gotten away from them and how it's the internet's commoditized the whole damn thing.
Everything.
And it didn't have to be. And it doesn't have to be.
And what's the worst business to be in? The commodity business.
Oh God. You know, I don't see dealers with unique selling propositions.
Because their ad guys don't talk about it. Right. Digital people aren't advertising people. They're technologists.
Yeah. Now. But unique selling propositions, there's 10 unique selling propositions. We'll put them up in the show notes, put the link to it up in the show notes. But BDC Box, we have a document of 10 unique selling propositions. It has nothing to do with technology, but it will help your store. You know, your partner is not just a technologist. It's somebody there to help the store. So, you know, get 2 or 3 unique selling propositions. They're the only thing that separate you from the guy down the road.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're trying to use
Sewell?
Right.
How do you become
exactly.
Sewell?
Yeah, you become Sewell. That took a long time for Sewell to become Sewell. Yeah. But now that they are Sewell, it's tough.
And Sewell knew what he wanted to become. Yeah. And he became it.
He became it 100%. I mean, that was an experience. But you know what? What made Sewell the experience it is? People at the store.
Yeah, of course.
It was right down to the lowest porter being able to make a decision for a customer.
And they believed it.
And they believed it. They lived it. And people experienced it at the store, and that became the experience. It never happened online. Nobody's experience with a vehicle ever happened online. Even Carvana's didn't. It was rejected by the customer. Now, what they did want online? All the information.
And how to get your Your
they
store,
don't deliver.
your hours.
They don't deliver even half the cars they sell. They don't deliver them. People come get them.
They come get them.
Yeah.
Right.
And they want to come get it because I want to feel the wheel before I sign on the dotted line. That's just been the car business. It's not likely to change. And I think I was talking to Andy Wright. I was talking to Andy Wright over the weekend. I think that this whole thing will likely go to more to I'll push a button and get a ride before it gets to before people start buying more online. I think you will bypass this whole online buying thing and go straight to I'll push a button and get a ride.
Yeah, the tea leaf on that one for me happened back in 2014 when I was doing a seminar at NADA. It was on CPO and the rise of the CPO. And I was looking at, when kids got their driver's license.
Right.
And, of course, you and me and everyone else watching this, as soon as we hit 16, down there at the DMV, right?
Right.
Back in 2014, the average age of a kid getting his license was 21 years old.
That's crazy.
Because of these things. This was their community. This was their time machine. This is where their beam me up, Scotty. This is how they communicated. And it was their car because I could FaceTime. Why do I need ride? And when I could look at you, right? So that is when, to me, it started to change. was that seminar, and seeing that the license, a kid getting his license wasn't until 21 on average.
Right.
That blew my mind.
I think the car business certainly has time for that. That's not going to be quote unquote ubiquitous anytime soon. But at the end of the day, I think that people are still going to be buying cars at the store. They're going to show up at the store. For foreseeable future. So second tactical, don't buy in to digital retail entirely. It's a lot like, to me, it's a lot like chat, right? I want to offer it, but it's not the best way I want to talk to a customer. It's probably the worst way I want to talk to a customer. But I can't not offer it because a customer might want it.
No.
Digital retail is the same way. I got to offer it because a customer might want it.
But it's also a metric for the guy that does your website to say, hey, I made an engagement. And so for every tool that you get served up digitally, there's a reason for it.
Right.
And usually the reason is for the provider, the vendor, to prove that whatever he was doing worked.
Right.
And his basis or definition
every
of
metric's
work is
going to be
different
about
than
that.
yours.
Every metric he delivers is going to be about that.
Ask one of your guys, your vendors, hey man, count ups. When was the last time you counted ups? When was the last time your vendor knew how many leads he provided you and how many of those leads showed up?
Right.
I mean, that's, the show metric, right?
Right.
How many of you guys keep the show metric?
Right.
That's an important one, because if they don't show up, they're not buying a car, or they're going somewhere else to buy a car.
Sure.
Well,
today, I mean, the reality is the shopping experience, the actual shopping experience does happen online. That did transfer from being in the store to being online.
It transferred from a newspaper business and a circulation to ubiquity, opportunity to look at your inventory.
Right. I mean, well, the paper was the litmus test for what should I spend. Right. How much money is this going to cost me?
Yep.
The finding of the vehicle became an online thing, and now how much is this going to cost me? Right. So that newspaper's out. I'm going to find vehicle. And how much is it going to cost me? And before I drive down to the store, do they have what I want? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. But then I'm going to get in the car and go down to the store. Right.
And
when they show up, that's it. They're going to deliver. They're going to visit 1.2 stores.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the 0.2.
Well, that's a statistic that is given to us by Google. I don't believe it. I really don't believe it.
I tend to have some well, I don't tend to. I have some data on that. Actually, they're not far from wrong on that one. Right? I don't know that Google, I don't know whether or not Google had the best intentions involved in that, but the customer is not visiting the number of stores.
Well, they used to shop 3 to 4 stores.
They used to shop 3 to 4 stores.
Well, that's a big difference. That's a big difference between 4 and 1.2. That means they only are, if you don't get them to show up, they're not buying. And so if they show up your joint and they don't buy, does that mean they didn't buy a car? Or does that mean
that means they went and bought it someplace else?
Right. And so what's your close ratio, Mr. Dealer?
Yeah.
Fit 80%? Well, then you're not counting ups, as Jimmy would say.
Right. You're not getting all the ups if you're at 80%. Most stores are, today, when we started digitally capturing every single up, in order to digitally capture every single up, you've got to give your salesperson a reason to want to capture that customer's information, and an easy way to do it, right?
A dealer, a friend of mine that's been a dealer of ours that we worked for years, he said to me, a while back, he said, Rob, I spent a lot of money traditionally, TV, print, radio. Now I spend a lot of money in digital advertising, maybe some more. I don't sell any more cars.
Yep.
Don't sell any more cars.
No. I mean, you're spending more money.
And I'm spending more money because this isn't him, but others believe that they have to have a BDC. They have to have an internet sales team, and then they have a floor team, and they may have a phone up team. I'm not sure. But all those descriptions used to be handled by one guy.
Yeah.
And it's still the same guy. It can be the same application, whether you're banging out notes on a keyboard or you're talking to someone on a phone or you're upping them as they walk through the door. It's human interaction.
Yeah, but if we get it's a great segue into I saw recently from Google the average cost of a click is now up to $6.
$6 for a click?
$6.40.
It's insane.
That's insane.
You can buy. We'll sell you a list for 80% off.
Yeah, right. I mean, you think about it. It's $6.40 for a click.
Yeah,
right.
It's not
and
crazy.
I don't even know if that click's real.
No,
30% of them aren't.
Yep.
Right. 30% of those clicks are not real.
Not real.
And so you're paying really $6.36, $6.42 plus 30%.
And you don't know who they are
for the clicks, and you have no idea who they are, right? So, third thing in this podcast, pay less attention to clicks. Don't throw them out completely, but pay less attention to clicks. The reality is that they're not and take 30% right off the top, and that's your real click number.
Yeah, and the click to me gives you more indication of model, inventory, and price.
Yeah, and pay damn near 0% attention to impressions.
Yeah, Zippo. Zero.
I mean, that's a feel good metric that somebody wants to sell you. Okay, impressions. I'm not interested. Clicks, I'm mildly interested. I mean mildly, and that's just to let me know how well my call to action might be working. I mean, did they click on my ad because of what I said? And if I change what I say, can I make more people click on my ad? And then, I always,
but even if they click on it, what's your correlation between the click and a showroom up? What's your correlation between a click and a phone call? What's your correlation between a click?
Well, that takes you down to if you're paying any attention at all to clicks, your click to lead ratio is what you're interested in.
Right. And that, I guarantee you, will not be a good metric.
Yeah. I mean, basically your conversion rate from click to a lead, and a lead, email address, name, email address, and or mobile number, but mostly you want all three. I will tell you this, don't let anybody convince you that if you make mobile number required on your website, you'll get less leads. That's bullshit. That's not true. Proven it many, many times.
Well, I would think that you would absolutely want that to be a necessity. Otherwise, It's not a lead.
It's not a lead. Well, I mean, but there are guys out there who they have no data to back any of it up.
Most of those guys are used car sales guys that want to tell you, Mr. Dealer, I know this internet game better than anybody else.
Yeah.
I'll get you ranked at number one of this, that, another thing. I'll get you more clicks. So how many more units did you show?
Fourth thing, require mobile phone. Require mobile phone on your lead forms on your website. It's the best way to engage with the customer. You will not lose lead volume. You will not lose lead volume. Okay, so just don't allow that to happen. But so think about that for a second, though. What we just talked about. So a lead, according to Google, a lead's damn near $70, $64 and some change.
So, but what is that? What's then their definition of the lead? What do you get?
They're a lead form filled out, and I don't think they're requiring mobile number, but at least a name and an email. All right, minimum.
Okay.
Right? So but a lead costs $64 and some change.
And the average individual has 12 different email addresses.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, whether or not you got the right email, that's a whole nother can of worms, right? 100%, whole nother can of worms.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, that's what a lead costs is $64 and some change through Google. I guarantee you, again, I keep going back, particularly lately, over the last probably 8 months, maybe a year. What did we do before we had lead forms? Before we had websites? We bought lists of customers.
Right. Yeah. With names.
Right.
And we knew where they lived.
AIM Data, my first company in automotive, and we did it at Charlie Thomas when I was doing, over 200,000 pieces of mail at Charlie Thomas when we started AIM Data, and we bought lists, and we had back then we called it a relational marketing database.
Yep.
And that's how we managed our list. That's how we directly talked to customers, or made direct offers to customers, or what you call direct marketing. But at the end of the day, that was a lead.
I wouldn't, and I tell.
And we didn't, when we think about it, we didn't know if they were online shopping. We didn't know if they were in market, but it worked, and we sold cars, and it was, hey, I can tell you what, it was a lot less then. It was a hell of a lot less than $64.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't do any advertising today, and I preach this to our AEs and to our customers, without it starting with a list. Because you can execute that list and ingest it into a DSP. If you've got a mobile hash,
we can get into all this because that's the next day, next episode.
But I want to do any of this digital display, any of this bullshit. I would not get on. I'm going to do any of that stuff.
Right.
I would have a list,
Absolutely.
and I would measure that list. I'd message that list
100%,
and I would then not just do it once and then get rid of it and then get another. I would nurture the list. I mean, that's not just the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do.
I mean, I mean, you hate to say that way because it sounds so definitive.
It is,
but you think about it. Nothing happens in your store without a conversation. You're not going to have a conversation without a name, an email address, and a mobile number. So, is it the only thing to do? It's certainly the best thing to do.
It's the best
we
thing.
can call it that.
If you want to get to masses, or niches, depending on what business you want to be in. I mean, there's no absolute. So when I say this, I mean, I want it because I know how this stuff works.
Right.
And if I'm running a Lexus store or a Ford store and chasing F-150 ups, I want a list.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
Because I know what to do with it.
So to wrap this up, guys, we're going to wrap up this first episode this way. Let me wrap, and I'm going to try to wrap up every episode this way. First thing we'd like for you to take away from this, if you will, is that experience is not your website. It's not. Stop trying to make it your website. Make it at the store. Focus on experience at the store. That's not to say don't leave your website behind. Don't do that.
The OEM won't let you.
And they won't let you anyway. But I'm just saying don't. And you always want to make the experience on your website as good, the greatest it can be. But that is not going to be the majority of your experience. It's going to be in the store. Work there. 2, events. Please get people to come to the store to experience you. Please do that.
And one last thing about events. You don't have to talk about price.
No.
On anything.
No.
Nothing. Best prices ever, lowest, blah, 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 biggest inventory, biggest opportunity. Come now because when they're gone, they're gone.
Right.
And you have a schedule put in place and the messaging is right.
Yeah.
And you frequency.
Yeah. Get with an agency that knows how to do an event. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So have more events. Then, unique selling propositions. Get them. Again, we'll put it in the show notes how to get our list of 10 unique selling propositions that work.
The home of the Silverado,
right off our way.
50 in the inventory. Simple things.
Yeah.
Simple things.
Yeah. Unique selling propositions. You could get there are 10 that work. I'll give you one of the best ones that works is price match guarantee. It's simple. It's easy. You've heard it before. It's not new. This is not groundbreaking. It works. So then wrapping up with that, a lead is a name, an email address, and a mobile number. That is a lead. No, there's no other definition for it. So when you're talking to a provider, talking to a vendor, talking to a partner about a lead, that's a lead. Require phone, mobile number. Require it, please.
Otherwise, you can't call anybody back.
And finally, understand that managing your list of customers, your database of customers, whatever you want to call it, your CDP, we're going to get into that in the next show. Manage it. It is the best and the only way you can communicate with customers. And a communication and a conversation will be had before you sell a car, before you perform service on a car, before you sell a part. So that wraps us up. First one out of the box.
I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was great. Hey, Jimmy, we're going to miss you, brother.
Amen to that, Jim. Thank you for everything you've done for the car business and what you've done for me, my family.
We're going to miss you, brother. We're going to miss you. And we're out.
Bye-bye.